It's done, the voters have spoken, and Labour will form the next government.
Because tonight people here and around the country have spoken, and they're ready for change, to end the politics of performance, a return to politics as public service. The change begins right here, because this is your democracy, your community, and your future. You have voted. It is now time for us to deliver.
It's a landslide and a disaster for the Conservatives.
And I take responsibility for the loss. To the many good, hard-working Conservative candidates who lost tonight, despite their tireless efforts, their local records of delivery, and their dedication to their communities, I am sorry.
The former Prime Minister taking responsibility for what is set to be the Tories' worst election result in their 90-year history. And this man is more than back.
It's midnight. There are two results in from the northeast of England that put Reform on 30% of the vote. That is way more than any possible prediction or projection. It's almost unbelievable. And what does it mean? It means we're going to win seats, many, many seats, I think, right now across the country. But to watch the TV coverage, it's almost comical. There's not a single representative on there from Reform UK. Mainstream media are in denial just as much as our political parties. This is going to be 6 million votes plus. This, folks, is huge.
Nigel Farage will lead at least 4 Reform MPs into Westminster. Welcome to the Daily Tea Results Special with me, Kamal Ahmed, up all night with our brilliant production team so that you, frankly, didn't need to be. My wonderful co-host Camilla will be with us a little later in this special edition. But first, just gone 5 o'clock in the morning, Ben Riley-Smith, our political editor, is here. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You've had a short nap.
I have.
You've rushed back. Looks like you might have had a quick shower, washed your hair. But more important than even that, let's run through the parties and what's happened in this really momentous, era-defining election. Let's start with Labour. Huge majority, landslide. What's your take?
Well, they won, and they won big. They look like they're on course to get around 400 seats, majority around 170. Now, that isn't the super-duper majority that the Tories were raising the spectre of in the end of the campaign, but it is a big, big win. It's roughly on par with 1997, Tony Blair sweeping into power. We all remember what happened then, 13 years of unbroken Labour government. And Keir Starmer's team will be absolutely delighted. They now have the political space to recast Britain in their image. Just think about a 170-seat majority, if that's what it is. That is double what Boris Johnson had at the last election. That just gives you so much space because 70, 80 Labour MPs can vote against you on some legislation and you can still get it through. So he really can reshape Britain.
Not maybe beyond his wildest dreams, because, of course, the polls were suggesting numbers even greater than that and a total wipeout for the Tories, which we'll come on to in a second. It's fascinating. We're in the studio, the Daily Tea studio, as I say. It's just gone 5 o'clock in the morning, and we can see on the screen there Keir Starmer making his first speech in central London as the Prime Minister-elect. Of course, a lot needs to happen still formally today, Buckingham Palace, the King, etc., before Keir Starmer is officially the Prime Minister of the UK. But Rishi Sunak has already apologised, has conceded that the Conservatives obviously have not won. But it moves so quickly, Ben, from the campaign, the rows, the manifestos, taxes, whatever it might be, onto what are they going to do. And I think that Sir Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, and I would put Wes Streeting in there as well. Wes Streeting, he nearly lost his seat. Very big pro-Palestinian vote in a number of constituencies. So this was a bit of an erratic that maybe we weren't quite expecting. But those three, Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, Wes Streeting, probably Angela Rayner, we've now moved on to what are they going to do? Because campaigns are odd, aren't they, Ben? When they're finished, they're mouldy within almost hours because the next thing is now the government. What do you think his first challenges are going to be?
Well, I think firstly there's going to be projecting a mood and a tone for his premiership.
There's a little whiff of 97, but not the same hubris.
No, I don't think it is elation on the back of this huge surge of optimism in the country. Keir Starmer's actually talked a lot about how he needs to meet the mood of the people, which is quite downbeat, quite frustrated. Turnout, it looks like, is going to be down, possibly the lowest for 20 years. But yeah, I think point one is set that tone for his entire premiership. Point two will be getting the cabinet in order. We'll probably see that Friday afternoon, possibly some ministerial posts being picked up Saturday. And there are a couple of hiccups. Jonathan Ashworth and Thangan Debonair, two members of his shadow cabinet, have lost. So they're going to need to be replaced or possibly made peers and rushed into cabinet. And then there's going to be that Downing Street speech, which again gives him a chance to lay out his vision for the 5 years, really. I mean, some of those are big moments that journalists will endlessly be drawing voters and readers back to in challenging the new Prime Minister about whether he's living up to those in the years ahead. And then quite quickly you're going to get into policy. On Tuesday, we're expecting Parliament to reopen. Keir Starmer will give a speech. The following week there'll be the King's Speech, where you get the legislative plan for Labour. And yes, on things like loosening, planning reforms, leaning into net zero, you're going to see the Labour government start the ground running, as Keir Starmer keeps saying.
Absolutely. And it's, as you say, just to touch on that vote share, or to build a bit on your point about vote share, it looks like the share at this stage, at least, of the count and the results coming in is that the vote share for Labour is going to be 37.8%, so below 40%. And of course, that could change over the next few hours. But I remember us discussing, Ben, and with Camilla, that if it was below 40 and it was a huge majority, and there was in general low turnout, which, as you say, Ben, looks also true, there are some tricky manoeuvres here about this ability to say we have won big, and under 40% of people actually voted for this new party. But let's move on to the Conservatives. Terrible, terrible result for them. But weirdly, maybe if you'd offered this to Rishi Sunak at the beginning of the campaign, he may not have taken it, but it's not as bad as some of the polls predicted.
Yes, some of those MRP polls, those mega polling analyses in the last couple of weeks of the campaign had the Tories down on 50, 60, 70 seats, sub 100.
Some said that Rishi Sunak might lose his seat.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
that didn't happen.
It was that dire. So possibly in that context, 150 looks all right. But I think once we get away from election night and step back, we'll look at the big picture. Never before in the last 200 years of the modern Conservative Party have they got fewer MPs, if it turns out to be 150 or 151, than this night. So, I mean, it is the worst defeat ever in those terms, the number of seats they've held. So that is bad. That is really bad. And they were starting up at 360, remember. So it is a terribly bruising night. We saw Rishi Sunak, when he won his seat, give a concession. He said, it's clear we've lost. He said, I'm sorry to those Tories who have been defeated. He made clear he was going to be standing down as PM. Also indicated he'd keep standing as a Richmond MP for years ahead, which is a piece of speculation there's been throughout the campaign. We don't yet know what he's going to do with the Tory leadership. There is an expectation he'll say something today, presumably when he's down in London in that Downing Street speech. Will he say, I'm going and I'm stepping down immediately? Will he say, I'm going, but I will continue to be leader for a period of months before we pick our successor? That's one open question. But yeah, you had a lot of Tory big beasts losing their seats as predicted.
Eight cabinet ministers gone. Jeremy hung on just. Kemi Badenoch is still there. Suella Braverman. But there's pretty thin pickings for who the next leader might be. And they will have at least four Reform MPs in Parliament. What do you think about how Nigel Farage has done? Is that beyond his wildest expectations?
Well, I think if you asked Nigel Farage or Richard Tice, the leader before him, you were going to have a number of MPs in Parliament, they would have bit your hand off. Because just remember the past, Nigel Farage's experience. He's run 7 times, he's lost personally. UKIP, they only ever won 1 seat in an election. Brexit Party won 0 seats. So 4 seats actually looks pretty good. It gives you some kind of standing in Parliament. Now, it's not as high as the 13 seats that the exit poll was indicating. I think the story of what happened there will is still to come and will play out over the next couple of days. But they have a presence in Parliament, and they have Nigel Farage there, and they have Richard Tice there, and they have Lee Anderson there. Now, they will complain about the fact that when you see the vote share, they probably won something like 14, 15, 16, 17% of the vote and are only getting 4 of 650 seats. But at least they have some kind of presence there, and it's fascinating to try and work out what Nigel Farage would do with it. Not least this question for the Tories about whether they want to try and bring him into the fold of the party or whether they're going to be butting heads for the next couple of years.
And Kemi Badenoch has said no to that question, and Suella Braverman has said bring it on, and she would love to work with Farage. It's going to be fascinating how the leadership plays out for the Conservatives next. And then just finally, let's have a look at the Lib Dems, although we should mention that the Greens have won 2 seats at least and have had, for them, a reasonable night. Then just for the Liberal Democrats, could be close to a record number of seats, although the exit polls suggested over 60, but now the latest forecast is for 56. So a good night for Ed Davey, and they'll be in this odd position that they will be substantially closer to the Conservative Party and being the official opposition than they were previously. And that will give Ed Davey some more weight within Parliament.
Yeah, it is a huge success for the Lib Dems if the seats turn out to be what we expect. For basically a decade, they've been in the political wilderness. After that Tory Lib Dem coalition ended in 2015, and they were punished by the electorate for going in with the Tories. Election after election, they've failed to mount a comeback. They tried to do it by leaning into Remain, didn't work. But now they have quadrupled their MP total. They have skipped to being the 3rd biggest party in Parliament. That means Ed Davey is going to get a couple of questions every Prime Minister's questions. That gives them a chunk about a 10th or 11th of the whole Commons. And it's going to be fascinating to see how essentially he tries to affect Labour policy on certain issues, I'm sure, on social care. And that comes with a big pound sign if you want to do anything big there, because that was the issue he championed in Parliament. But yeah, they are back fundamentally.
Ben, thank you so much. Thank you so much for rushing back in to record the podcast. You've got a whole day ahead of you. Do follow on the Telegraph website and app, etc. We'll be covering this, of course, all day. Big takeout. Keir Starmer is the new Prime Minister. Labour is the new government. The Tories have had a shockingly bad night. Reform are back, or not back. Reform are there for the first time. And the Lib Dems will be feeling pretty happy.